Well, hello friends. Welcome to the SerenityOS update for July 2020. It has been another interesting month in the project, and while I've personally been on vacation, a lot of cool work has been happening in the project this month. So before we begin though, let me just tell you about sponsorship. So the Serenity operating system and all of my content about it is always going to be free and open source, but if you would like to support my work and one day make it possible for me to do this full-time, then there are 3 donation options. I'm on GitHub Sponsors and Patreon for those interested in making a monthly recurring donation, and I'm also on PayPal if you would like to make a one-time donation. And you can find links to all of those services in the description below the video. And as always, a huge thank you to everyone who's already supporting me in some way. The community of supporters is steadily growing, and it's just amazing to me how many of you are choosing to help me out on this very curious quest. And this month, I also want to give a special shout out to the folks who have been sending me computer parts over the last 4 months, because I was finally able to assemble them all into a full computer, which I'm now using to record this video. And it is significantly faster than my old machine, and I'm recording at 60 FPS, which previously was not possible, so I hope it comes out all right. Anyway, thank you all very much for all the computer parts. Very, very exciting stuff. So with all of that out the way, let's take a look at July. So my big project this month has been the user space emulator. It's a new thing I started, which aims to implement features like the famous Valgrind tool, which allows you to run programs in a sort of instrumented environment, and then it can catch stuff like memory leaks and use after freeze and buffer overflows and things like that. And let me show you what that looks like. So here, let me write a program that leaks some memory. So we'll make a, I don't know, like a pointer here. We'll allocate 15 bytes, and we will run that here in the emulator, and we can see that when it exits, it prints out that we have a 15-byte allocation leaked at a specific address. And if we look at the backtrace here, we can see where it was allocated in main CPP line number 8. So it's right here. And if we free that, we can build and run again, and there are no leaks found. So that's pretty cool. But what if we, for example, try to do something with this memory after it's been freed? So we try to set something in there to a value. We run. And what we get now is a report. Oops, let me see if I can resize that a little bit. We get a use after free report here. So it says an invalid 1 byte write at an address here. Here we get a backtrace for the write. And it also tells us that this is 2 bytes into a block that was size 15 that we allocated with this backtrace and freed with this backtrace. So it's a very comprehensive report on our use after free bug. And it has other interesting capabilities as well, like it can detect that you're using uninitialized memory. So say that you were to branch on some random value in here, that we haven't initialized any of these things. So we would return 1 if this is 42. We build and we run, and it will say that there is a conditional that depends on uninitialized data at main CPP line number 10. And that's indeed right here. So this has been an extremely interesting project, and the way it works is that there is a complete CPU emulator, basically, that I implemented that runs in user space, and then it intercepts all of the system calls and sort of pretends to be the kernel. So we can run a program. It thinks it's running on Serenity, but actually it's running inside the CPU emulator, and whenever it thinks it's talking to the kernel, it's talking to the emulator, and then the emulator traces a bunch of things and adds metadata to allocations and stuff, so it can figure out exactly which memory is not initialized, which stuff is allocated, which stuff is freed. It keeps track of all that, and then we're able to do these extremely interesting bug reports here like this. So this has been really cool work, and I'm really happy with how far it's gotten, and it's not quite ready yet to run GUI applications on the system, but we can run various command line utilities. So UE is user space emulator. We can run ls. Of course, it reports a bunch of problems that are not real because I added some stuff right before the video, which I probably shouldn't have. But it can run a bunch of command line utilities. But anyway, moving on from that. So other stuff that I also worked on a bit earlier this month was multiprocess support for the browser. So if we bring up the browser with -m, it runs in multiprocess mode, and then we actually have a process per tab here. So every tab runs in its own web content process, and if we, let's bring up a root system monitor, and we can flip this around. So we have 3 web content processes here, 1 per tab. We can see that they are running as an unprivileged web content user, and they are very tightly pledged, and likewise they have a very, very tight view of the file system as well. And they can't do any network access, and they can't do much file system access really. And this is very, very cool, I think, and it's going to it's just like the sensible thing to do. It's a modern browser architecture, and we are moving in the right direction with that stuff, so that's really good. There's still a lot of stuff to do on multiprocess browser, but it's stuff that we can do, so we're gonna get there. Oh, and some other stuff in the browser new this month is, for example, SVG. So Matthew started working on SVG support. It's still very early, but we do have some path elements here. We can look at the source, and you can see that here's an SVG with a bunch of different paths that we render, and that's very, very fun. So thank you, Matt, for starting work on that. And something I worked on was text selection and copying. So you can now copy text here and paste it somewhere else. So this is obviously a very useful feature, and it makes the libweb widget a lot more useful as a user interface component, right? Like, because now you can actually copy text out of it. Previously it was only showing stuff but not really letting you copy anything. So that's good. And then I also added a select all feature, so you can press Control-A to select all the text. It's just a fun little thing. A bunch of people actually contributed to libweb this month, which has been really great. There's been Matt with the SVG stuff, and Kevin did a whole bunch of little bug fixes here and there, so thank you, Kevin. And also Luke worked a bunch on the web engine, and has been added a bunch of web APIs, which is great. So the number of APIs that we have in our DOM that we expose to web content is like increasing a little bit. And another thing that Luke also worked on was we now have a web test runner. It's still, we don't have a lot of tests here, as you can see, but it's something that we can now start adding. So this is what they look like. Here's a test for doc types, and they are pretty nice looking tests, I think. And there's been a lot more work done on JavaScript tests. So we have a new JavaScript test runner called test.js that was added by Matt, and then a bunch of people helped out with converting the tests, and it's like a whole new way of writing our tests. So if let's just open this in the, wait, that didn't work out. Okay. If we look at these tests here, they are written in this style now. It's quite different from what we had before, but definitely nicer. So this is supposed to be in a similar style to the Jest framework, if you're familiar. This has been a huge effort by Matt to implement the new unit testing framework, to build a new test runner, and then convert all of our existing tests. And I think this is really fantastic, and I quite like the output. We even have like these I would say, pretty tasteful use of emojis in the output. And we have some failures here because of our math implementation, but let's just not care about that right now. And there's been a whole bunch of other things in libjs, like stuff like symbols coming in, proper iterator support, and instance of is now spec compliant, and there's just like various things improving around libjs. It's kind of it's funny, like I just look away from libjs and I look back again, and then it has improved somehow, and it just keeps improving. That's really great. But yeah, so that's a bunch about the web stuff. So then let's look at some maybe Pixel Paint. So I worked a bit on Pixel Paint, this application, our Paint app, and it now has layer opacity controls. You can turn on and off the visibility of layers, and Ali has been here as well hacking on this, and let me show you what he's been doing. Let me paint something here. So he's been adding some filters. So we got some edge detection filters, some blur and sharpen filters. So we'll do a Gaussian blur, and look at that. Very, very fancy. So these are, I think, basically like, what do they call, like convolution matrix filters. So you can also do like a generic 5x5 matrix if you want to input that yourself. But, ooh, look at that. But it's pretty fun that we have that, and then that's going to allow us to build out more interesting features going forward. And it's just nice to have someone else hacking on the Paint app as well. Anyway, then let's go and look at the Help app. So there's a little thing here that's new, which is that when you open one of these books, then it shows an open book icon. So that's new. Very, very cute. I think that was Charles who did that. And what else do we have? There's been a lot of work on like random desktop polish, I should say. So one thing, by the way, that you maybe already noticed is that we now have icons here. So previously we didn't have icons, but now, thanks to Ben, it's possible to set an icon on the parent of a submenu. So all these menus here, they have submenus, and previously we couldn't assign an icon to them, but now we can. And Ben has added icons here, and he also drew some new icons like this themes icon, and he's also been fixing up some older icons, giving them like a better contrast and like making them look a bit nicer. Really, really good work by Ben. So thank you for that. And then, here we can see some new icons for Inspector and Profiler. And let's see, I think, who was doing that? I think that was Charles, who was adding the profiler stuff, because let me show you. If we open Profiler here, it actually now has a UI, right, for choosing the process you want to profile. So we can profile the terminal and do some stuff. And here we have a profile recording. And the process chooser that the profiler uses, it's now a generic system component, and it's also used by the inspector. So you can just start the inspector from here and choose terminal, for example, and it brings you into a view where you can see all of the live objects in the terminal application. Now, previously you had to start the inspector from the command line, but now it actually uses the process chooser to have more of a GUI, which is really cool. So thank you, Charles, for working on that. And there was, I also added the ability to start the profiler from the system monitor. So we can actually profile from here, just profile process. So that's pretty nice. So like if you see something like run away and use all the CPU, you can just kick up the profiler directly from system monitor. Very, very nice. And let's bring up the widget gallery. So we have some new, let's see, here we have some new cursors. So there's the cursors tab, and Linus has added a bunch of new cursors, like a weight cursor, a which one was new? Help cursor, and he added some of these resize column and resize row, and these actually show up if you're using a splitter like we have here. You can see that there's a custom cursor now for doing this split action, which is very nice. And here's something I worked on, very little, but I like it. There's a special icon for the home folder, so you can see that home and on has this little house, and you can also see it here. It's a little house on the icon. And if we go to the icon view, we can see here as well. This is my home directory, so he gets a special icon. Just a little thing, but I like it. And let's see, so if we right click on something here, we'll notice something else. So these are, there's now something showing up in bold in menus sometimes, and that's the default menu item or default action for something, and that's supposed to communicate that this is sort of the action that would activate or trigger if you double click on the thing. And that's something that Tom implemented, which I think turned out really nice. So you can see here that close is in bold, which communicates that if you double click on this, then it will close. So pretty cool. And something else that Tom worked on actually in File Manager as well is if you do this, then the view will now auto scroll. Previously it would just stay in one place, but actually now it scrolls when you do that. And he also implemented some pretty clever caching so that scrolling through large directories like /bin is actually pretty fast. Previously it would easily get very sluggish, but now it's pretty snappy. And something else that, let's see, if I bring up the font editor, we can see here that a bunch of madmen have gone and drawn most of the glyphs that we needed for these fonts, and we have like the bottom of Unicode basically filled out in our font. I was never expecting this to happen, but I guess we're going to have to increase the range on these fonts so that we can have some more glyphs to draw. At some point we should probably look at a more clever font format, but super nice work by Charles and Nico, who worked on fonts this month, and it's been really nice. And there was something else that Charles was doing as well. He was doing combo box stuff. Right, so now combo boxes, they behave a bit better. So for example, if I have one combo box open and I click on another one, then the first one closes. Previously they didn't do that. And he's been doing like a bunch of these little fixes for combo boxes, which I think is nice. And then let's look at something very, very silly. So we have our eyes program, which obviously is a must-have on a Unix desktop like Serenity is, but it actually now has an option where you can run it with multiple eyes. Ooh, look at that. And you can even run with very many eyes. If you, for some reason, want to live your life this way, you can run eyes-n, and this was implemented by Ali. So thank you, Ali, I guess. Very nice. But Ali also did some very, very helpful stuff as well. He's implemented a new Shell Parser. So the shell now has like a much more proper parser than the thing we had before, which was just kind of thrown together. And it's now able to do fancy things like 1, 3, 5, stuff like this. And And it knows various other things, like it can do command substitution. Wait, how do I even do this? Echo. I forgot what I wanted to do. Right, you can just do stuff like that. It's command substitution. I don't know why I can't think of a good example of that right now, but it works. We have a sec program to produce sequences, which goes hand in hand with for loops, I guess. This was added by Nico, and Linus made a little utility called ini, which helps you look at ini files. So you can do things like ini, etc, Windows Server ini, and then let's see what's actually in there. So we have, for example, the theme. So ini, etc, Windows Server ini, theme name. So it allows you to read contents of ini files, but you should also be able to change them, I think. So change it to Redmond, and I'm not sure that I was allowed to write to that file, actually. Oh, wait, I was. Oh, okay, it's writable for me because I'm in the window group. That's cool. So it was actually, that's interesting. So I've set the theme, but it didn't actually update because editing the file is not enough. But anyway, I guess we'll go and change it manually. And oh, speaking of themes, by the way, we now have, here is a theme called Basalt, which looks a little bit strange actually here with the background is coming through, so there's some bug there to fix, but this was a theme that was added by Sarah, who also made it possible to change the metrics of title bar buttons and some things like that, and started adding mechanisms that we could have not only colors in themes but also metrics. So that's been really good, and there's more stuff coming in that direction, I think. But actually this theme is quite nice looking, although this glitch here is bothering me, so I'm going to switch out to go to Redmond 2000, personal favorite. And something else that's new in the Shell environment this month is we can now set an actual password. So if I set the password cool, then cool is now my password, and I guess that's not terribly useful, but if I set a root password, then that's going to be a lot more useful, because it means that if I want to become root, I actually have to provide a password, which, of course, I know the password is cool, but if I fail, then I can't get root. So this was all implemented by Peter, so thank you, Peter, for implementing that. And right now we actually store the password hash in etc passwd, and that's something that we're definitely going to change that up. It's just that's just where it is right now, but that's pretty cool. So what else? There was a whole bunch of work, I guess I should have mentioned when I was doing this, that Nico has done a whole bunch of work on the C++ syntax highlighting stuff. So it now recognizes a lot more tokens, and that's really nice. A lot of work in that area. And Nico also added a fuzzer for our Markdown implementation and found one bug so far that got fixed. That's really good. And I don't know, there's just so many things have been going on. It's been really interesting and productive month. I guess I always say that, but it's always true. So and then some stuff I can't show here right now because I don't have it set up, is we now have early stages support for the 9p file system from the Plane 9 operating system, which is a sort of a networked file system, which should make it possible for me to share files with my host machine, although I didn't get it set up yet. I should probably do that. Still, that's very exciting that stuff's coming along. It needs a bit of user land support, like we need some help programs and stuff for setting it up easily. So that's still ahead of us, but still it's cool to have network file systems coming in. And there's also been a lot of work towards SMP this month, or multiprocessing. So Tom has been doing a lot of good work on getting the kernel ready. We can now detect and boot up multiple CPUs, and that's working pretty well, but we don't yet schedule any threads to run on other CPUs. So we can boot them up, but we don't actually use them yet. That's something that's eventually coming, but we're still ironing out the kinks in that area. But anyway, I think this was basically everything I had to show you and talk about today. So thank you very much for stopping by and catching up with the project. I really appreciate that everyone's taking an interest, and I'm really happy with how things are going, and I'm really proud of everyone who contributed this month. It's been really great. And yeah, if you ever want to talk, we're always hanging out in the IRC channel. It's SerenityOS on the Freenode network. You'll find us there. And I guess that's it. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye.